Southern Miss hangs on, one down, one to go for a trip to Omaha. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, also host Afternoons on 103.3 The GOAT here in Lafayette. And we're doing this following the Southern Miss 5-3 win over Tennessee. I'm going to head to Baton Rouge to see Game 2 of LSU and Kentucky. So we'll see if we get one later on tonight. Most likely we will, but just to make sure I get one in. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. All right, Southern Miss hangs on 5-3. I'm sure Golden Eagles Nation's heart rate and blood pressure went up just a little bit. Let's recap. Obviously, the delay was the major story, and I think the disappointing thing was that it wasn't that they started and stopped. It was that they started, stopped, started again, and then stopped again. That was the disappointing part. Maybe move the games up. It feels like they would move the games up for TV purposes, right? Like, we got weather coming at 3. Let's not start at 2, kind of deal, or 1. Whenever the Saturday game started, let's start it at 11 or something along those lines, like they did on Sunday, in case there is weather later on in the afternoon. I would say hashtag always a bright side. At least there was weather, right? Like, the weather in Baton Rouge didn't come until, the third weather delay, which forced them to not start, whereas they had 5 hours of sunshine and no lightning strikes. So it didn't really affect anything outside of, LSU fans had to wait for a 14-0 victory. All right, this is about Southern Miss. So they jump out on top fast, right? This was, they get, first of all, you got to give it up to Billy Oldham, right? He gets the nod for extra rest, as he said. The announcer said extra rest for Tanner Hall. I'll be the first to tell you I was surprised that Oldham went first, but Tanner did pitch Monday in the regional, and they're looking at the weather. So we don't want to have happened to what happened to Billy, or what LSU, to be honest with you, didn't want to have happen to Paul Skeens. We don't want to start and stop and lose our ace pitcher. And so Billy Oldham, what a great story. I went to Division III school. They're pretty good, not this year. And he wins, East Connecticut State, plays for won the national championship in Division III last year. And now he is starting a super regional in Hattiesburg for Southern Miss. And he was very good. He was outstanding. He does get tagged with 1 run, although he was long gone to be charged with that. But 4 1/3 innings, 2 hits, does give up the 1 run. He didn't walk anybody, struck out 5. In fact, what a spot for him and Christian Moore when they came back. I think it was right the bottom half of the 3rd inning. That's a tough spot for anybody and everybody. They stopped the ball game, and no, maybe it was the 4th. I'm mixing my innings up here. Let me see here. Yeah, it was the 4th inning. So it's a 4-0 Southern Miss lead. We'll get to that here in a second. And they stopped the game with 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 on. And it's a tough spot for Billy Oldham. It's a tough spot for Christian Moore. And Billy got him, striking him out to end that inning. They come back in the 5th, and that's where they stopped it again. And Tennessee actually got some runs. We'll get to that here in a second. So Billy Oldham really setting the table early on, though he does get some help, right? So oddly enough, and I don't understand why, although maybe in this case where it seems to be more of a coin flip on why Southern Miss hosted versus Tennessee, we don't want to get into that. That's not what this episode is about. We had fun with that all week. But I don't get why, we have to split up home field advantage. That seems ridiculous. It is actually a coin flip on how that happens. If you're hosting, you're a home field. I thoroughly believe that the only true home field advantage in all of sports is the home team for baseball, right? If you jump to the end and Tennessee's the home team and they score 3 runs in the 9th inning, the game's over. That's home field advantage. Everything else is kind of psychological, but I don't get it. Anyways, so Southern Miss is up first. All right, and Parker with the 2-run triple past the diving center fielder of Tennessee, which I don't really mind the Tennessee center fielder making that play. He had a bad angle on it. Like, it wasn't a play where, he could have blocked it if he played it on a hop. He was going to miss that baseball. He was either going to catch it, which he really wasn't that close to it, or he was going to play it on a hop. And the angle that he took on it, he wasn't going to play it on a hop. Plus, it's the first inning. Try and make a play. I don't agree with. I thought Todd Walker mentioned that he thought 2 runs were going to score anyways. I don't think so. If he can get in front of the ball, but that's not where the ball was hit, so he couldn't get in front of the ball. And immediately Southern Miss is up 2-0. Billy Oldham then strikes out a pair. By the way, the other big thing was Lindsey in the first inning threw like 35 pitches for Tennessee. It was a hot, muggy day, right? We knew that going in, and he's already got 35 pitches. Meanwhile, I think it was like 14 for Billy Oldham in the first inning. It was outstanding. All right. And so now you got a 2-0 lead. They go scoreless in the second. In the third inning, Dustin Dickerson homered. Eric Kane from Locked On Vols brought it up first thing, when we were talking about, the Southern Miss lineup. Talk to me about Dustin Dickerson, and he's continuing to be on fire. He adds a home run in the third inning, making it 3-0. Then in the fourth inning, Monastir hits a home run, and it's 4-0. And let's be honest, Tennessee's in trouble, right? I know it's not 10-0 or anything along those lines, but Tennessee is in a little bit of trouble here. Billy Oldham's pitching great. Lindsey is, let me see how many pitches he finished with. Where are we going here? How many pitches did he finish with? Obviously, he didn't. He finished the fourth, but it never came back. So he was in trouble to begin with, right? I mean, he pitched 78 pitches in 4 innings. So I can't imagine he was going more than 6. And then you're going to get into the Tennessee bullpen, which, as it turns out, pitched okay. But Southern Miss gets that 4-0 lead, and then the weather comes. All right. And so that's where we will take our time out. All right. We will come back. We will talk about the weather delay and what kind of effect that it had on Southern Miss and on Tennessee. But first, let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. A couple more games, maybe, hopefully, at least one in the NBA finals. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. My bets are not doing all that well right now. I had a small parlay on the Nuggets and the Panthers. Not great. I took a flyer on the Heat. Not great. I took a flyer on 6 games in the NBA Finals. Not great. Not looking good for Schultz. All right. But nonetheless, a lot of fun, easy to do. We will start doing team futures on there for the NCAAs. Need to see where Alabama is. They were heavy favorites to be under 10.5, like almost 2-1, like betting $100 to win 50, like ridiculous. Or almost like betting $200 to win $100. But if that goes down to 10, maybe change my bet. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. So the weather comes, right? We mentioned Billy Oldham against Christian Moore of Tennessee, gets out of that jam, but then it happens again in the 5th inning. And in this case, the weather did come. They weren't just sitting through clear skies. They did wait a while, and the weather came. And so people were frustrated. Why did they played like an inning, so that seemed to be a waste of time. I'm not even sure it was an inning, right? They top of the 4th to the Well, I guess they were in the bottom of the fourth to the bottom of the fifth. So just about an inning. And so now this is the way I'm thinking about it, right? I got to believe Southern Miss fans were like, we have them. It's 4-0. This is going to allow them to, collect themselves and regroup. And the last thing we want them to do, we want them to wilt in the sun. We don't want them to get a good night's sleep in the air conditioning. We want them to be under the pressure. It's all momentum is all on us. And like Southern Miss's, worst fears were coming true, right? And so you can't bring Billy Oldham back again. Will Armistead, who's been pretty good and may have been a Game 3 starter, still may, if it gets that far, just didn't have it. He struggled with his command and his control. And though he did get the first batter that he faced, so he came in, there is one on and one out, okay? He immediately gets a fielder's choice, throws the second. They couldn't quite turn the double play. So there's a runner on at first and 2 outs. You are really one good pitch away from it being 4-0 heading into the 6th inning. And then it fell apart. He hits Stark, he walks Ahuna, and then that loads the bases, and then he hits Ensley, and you got to get him out of there, right? From hitting a guy to walking a guy to hitting a guy, you got to get him out of there. It's still only 4-1, but you got to get him out, all right? Now, give credit to Dickey on a 2-2 pitch from Justin Storm. He delivers a 2-run base hit to make it a 4-3 ball game, but Justin Storm does get Merritt struck out looking. Now, it was a crazy strike zone for the home plate umpire. I don't know if it was the same one. I presume it could have been the same one as it was on Saturday, but it seemed to be a very odd-shaped strike zone. A couple of pitches on the outside looked really good, and then the strike 3 call didn't look like a strike at all. And so there I would tell you Justin Storm maybe caught a break, but it seemed to be a very odd-shaped strike zone. Even at the end of the ball game, that looked like strike 3 with 1 out in the 9th, and he got him to chase an inside breaking ball. But it was nonetheless, Justin Storm doesn't give anything else up, right? I mean, you got 2 on and 2 out, right? Another base hit ties the game up. He gets Garrett looking, and then Justin Storm doesn't really give up much, right? In the 6th, he got a little bit of trouble, but his catcher Montenegro bailed him out. He walks Moore, and on a pitch in the dirt or carpet, as the case may be, Moore tries to advance, almost like a delayed steal on a 2-2 pitch, and he's thrown out. Perfect throw, right on the bag, and Moore is out. And that maybe changed the whole inning because it was going to be a 3-2 pitch coming up next. Instead, Burke flies out. Denton ends up walking, but Scott lines out, and no real damage done. And Storm just kind of got into a groove, did give up, let's see here, a base hit and an error in the 7th inning, but then they had a ground ball to third and just stepped on the bag to end the threat. And they really didn't, I guess, you put the tying run to the plate, you do something. He retires the side in order in the 8th. And then in the 9th, does hit a batter, but a ground ball to third base, and they force out the runner at second. So Southern Miss hangs on. They win 5-3, and they are 1 game away. Their first super regional win since 2009, since their last trip and only trip to Omaha. And now this all sets up for, wait for it, Southern Miss's Tanner Hall. We'll be back after this to talk about that on Locked On Sunbelt. All right, again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is an emergency podcast, if you will. Sorry to borrow that, Dave. Also because we'll see if we can get it in depending on what time we come back from Baton Rouge, but I wanted to make sure I got one in for today. Good chance if Southern Miss pulls this off today, we'll do another one for tomorrow, or we could do one, first thing in the morning is the way that could be done, just to make sure I do get, the beauty sleep. But thank you, Southern Miss. Thank you, Golden Eagles Nation. It doesn't seem like a lot, but yesterday's, or actually was Thursday's episode that became one of my biggest, and it's you guys, right? Also, Vols Nation is involved with that as well. The two biggest ones happen to be when Sunbelt teams are playing Tennessee. Kind of ironic because the Cajuns play Tennessee in the NCAA tournament, and now it's the Volunteers versus the Golden Eagles. But I think it's mostly coming from Southern Miss fans, and kind of just blew up on Saturday out of nowhere. It kind of blew up. So really appreciate that. God, if they can win this and get to the College World Series, I may get 300 subscribers. And I know that's not a lot, right? The idea is to get to 1,000, but also the more you get, right, the more your videos are out there, the more people are sharing, and the more subscribers you get. It kind of builds exponentially, as it proved on Saturday to be the case. So thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can always find us audio-wise as well. Just search Locked On Sunbelt wherever you find your audio podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, wherever you get them. We are there. Also, if you are in Apple Podcast, please rate and review. It would be a big help. All right, Dave Schultz wrapping things up on this, again, emergency bonus episode of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Now it's up to Tanner Hall. All right, this was the game plan going into the Super Regional that maybe due to the rain, maybe due to needing the rest, but this is what Scott Berry lined up, that they wanted somebody else to go first. And if somehow you could get a win, now you got Tanner Hall, your ace, trying to lead the way. Now, he didn't win the last time out. Well, he did pitch. But the last start, right, he pitched 9 innings of 2-run baseball, and they lost that game 4-2. That was the last time that Justin Storm did not get the job done. He's done it 3 out of the last 4 times, right? Sunbelt Championship, to win the regional, and then now to take game 1 of the Super Regional. All right, so props to Justin Storm. All right, did not allow that 2-run home run in the 10th inning. The last time Tanner Hall started a game, right? He did pitch. Well, I guess he did start. He did start the regional, but he wasn't going very long. He did start that ball game. That's right. He did start that one and gave up 2 unearned runs. So it would have been a very effective couple of innings for Tanner Hall. But this is where Scott Berry wanted to be. And let's see if the bats can get going. Here's the thing about baseball. It's not one of those games like basketball or football or even hockey. The harder you try, the tougher it is. So baseball is a lot like golf. You can't be squeezing the bat too much. You can't be squeezing the ball too much, or else it's not going to go where you want to, and it can get tense. If somehow Tanner Hall does Tanner Hall, all right, got to put up some zeros to begin with, because Tennessee's going to be really aggressive. If you can get a lead early, you might see Tennessee make a couple of mistakes. Let's see, do they get over aggressive, trying to make something happen instead of letting the game come to them? See if they do that. So I'm looking for Tanner Hall to close this out. See if Southern Miss can head back to Omaha for the first time since 2009. And quickly, aren't they lined up with? Let me see here. They be lined up with LSU. Isn't that the way it is, right? The 4 and the 5 seeds, right? So Tennessee was out of, let's see, right? Yeah, Southern Miss, at least to begin with, or the winner of this Super Regional will be matched up with the winner of the Baton Rouge LSU Kentucky Super Regional. So that'll be a lot of fun with me because I'm following both teams. One for the radio job on 103.3 The Goat, and one for Locked On Sunbelt. So that'll be a lot of fun if it comes to fruition. We still got a long way to go. LSU beat Kentucky 14-0 on Saturday night. They're taking Kentucky on at 5 in Baton Rouge. And, of course, Southern Miss is coming up here in about an hour, 2 o'clock p.m. So we want to get this one out. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We will probably be back with a second one, kind of like if necessary. Like if there's an if necessary game, we probably won't be. If they win it, we probably will be. See how that works out? All right. It is Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Thanks very much for tuning in, and enjoy the baseball.